Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators football podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how are we feeling tonight? How is everything in Gaines, Vegas? I know it's hot. It's hot here too. It's hot everywhere, apparently, because there's like a nationwide heat wave from what I'm hearing. So fun times. How's it going?
Fun times. It's hot. It's muggy. It's humid. It's the South. But outside of that, it's great, man. Looking forward to this episode. Got to get to go into the meat and potatoes of a lot of things, but either way, looking forward to hashing it out with you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We are less than 60 days from Florida Gators football. We're much less than 60 days from college football, but we are less than 60 days from Gators football. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Under 2 months to go. Let's get it done. All right. So tonight, what are we talking about? We're going to do an NIL follow-up here. So what's in the bank is what we're calling this. And we're going to go through the House versus NCAA initial ruling and kind of reference back to that and what it's established. And then we're also going to give you an update on recruiting because, man, Gator boys stay hot, buddy. Holy cow, we are pulling them in right now. Really good stuff. So we'll get to that at the end here. But to start things off, as always, we'll have our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. Our mission is, of course, to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org. And our recruiting data, as we will be using tonight profusely, comes from on3.com. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions as well as on-the-field execution. So, agenda for tonight, as mentioned, we will have an NIL update. We're going to talk about a few different points here, but basically we're going to talk about what the settlement established, what we know to be true about that or to be now in place because of it, and then things we don't know still, despite this being in place. We're then going to discuss how does it impact recruiting, because that will then lead us into our recruiting update, because I think there are some very key factors in what goes on there. So with that, we will get things started, and I will get us started off tonight. Little change from what we maybe typically do, but I will start us off here with our NIL update establishing what this House versus NCAA settlement has put in place. So first and foremost, we have back pay to previous players. So for dating back several years, Randy's got the exact number, so I don't want to misquote it. But dating back for several years, there is a back pay settlement of $2.8 billion that is going to be paid out to past athletes who have competed in the NCAA. Pretty wild number there, but it's dating back several years. So again, I'll let Randy kind of fill in the particulars there, but $2.8 billion, big number. It is also set up, so that's thing number one. Thing number two is that it has set up revenue sharing with schools that are now directly funded through the athletic department, the athletic association, whatever you want to call it. It's the UAA for Florida, has different names at different schools, but it is directly paid to the players by the schools. So, how much? The answer is $20.5 million per year per school for the first year, and this is for Power 4, but that is the setup. And then there will be a 4% increase annually, and this ruling is set in place for 10 years. So this will substantially grow over time with that 4% increase, but nothing too crazy. It's about $800,000 a year or so. So the third thing it establishes is that it mandates both the reporting and evaluation of NIL deals through a third-party firm, being Deloitte. But what I mean by NIL deals is not those deals that are authorized through revenue sharing through the school, but those that are authorized through a collective. So I think the spirit and the idea here, anyway, is that we get back to a place where these NIL deals are actually name, image, and likeness deals and not, hey, come play here, we'll give you $1 million. That is the idea, because the hey, come play here, we'll give you $1 million happens from the revenue sharing. The, hey, we also want you to sponsor the car dealership. We also want you to, do a deal through Gatorade, for example, or whatever, right? And helping facilitate those things through the school. Those are NIL deals that are legitimate and possible and everything else. But in theory, they should only be applicable to your bigger, more prominent, starting, high-profile players. See DJ Lagway, see Trey Wilson, see maybe some of the running backs, right, when we get up there, perhaps Jaden Ball, but right now maybe not because still not fully established. But anyway, the point is the examples here are that they have to be the higher profile players, or Deloitte's going to say, wait a second, what are you guys doing paying this guy this much money for some Facebook posts and a hat sign, right? This dude, nobody knows who this guy is, right? So that's the purpose of this, is to evaluate the authenticity and the efficacy of these deals. So with that, I will turn it over to Randy, kind of get your take on this settlement and what it establishes.
Yeah, B. I'm not sure if I should use my Ben Stein voice to go into the description of all this. The NCAA and the Power 5 conferences will pay roughly 2.8, but no, there's a lot of meat and potatoes when there
are
unpacking it, or should I say peanuts in the accounting world, right?
Yes, indeed.
So great points there. 2.8 billion with a B dollars in back pay, stemming back when and how former Division I student athletes who competed between 2016 up until present day, or 2024, because the new system technically checks started to be cut on July the 1st, 2025.
Yep, that's right.
So
7 days ago.
Right. So having that been said, these players who previously were unable to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness due to previous NCAA rules. This type of compensation, the way it's going to be done is it will be distributed over a 10-year period. So it's not like JG Wentworth. It's my money. I need it now. It's not going to be quite like that. There's going to be a slow drip. There's some red tape. There's some legalities. We got to jump through a hoop or 2 or 10 for 10 years. Okay, fine. That is what it is. So it needed to happen because, as we know, established back in June of 2021, that was the first real time where we had the first lawsuit, right? Talking about athletes being singled out or being compensated or unfairly compensated for all that they've done. And that's where the NIL ruling came from, or the de facto salary ruling. And that's where we had collectives formed and all those ventures formed and so on and so forth. So that is what it is. So beginning the 25-26 academic year, schools that opt into the settlement, right, can share up to 22% of certain athletic revenue. So what is that athletic revenue be? We've got media rights, we've got ticket sales, we've got sponsorships, right? And when you look at
we've got media rights. Oh, I'm sorry, you already said that. But...
media rights. Media. Does that play a little part in this?
Just slightly, just maybe a little bit.
I tell you. So $20.5 million, it is what it is. As you mentioned, the 4% per year, roughly 800,000 to $1 million. It's going to increase every year. So that's going to be what it is. The interesting thing too about that is, and people are thinking, okay, great. So the school pays. The school in the NCAA says, hey, establish this fund. That's good, right? But here's the interesting thing too is, guess what? The collective still exists.
That's right.
So what is that, right? So that's where Deloitte comes in. As B, you mentioned, the third party I believe it's called NIL Go, and so Deloitte's going to manage that.
Yeah,
so
it's good. There's going to be a lot of NIL no go though.
Pretty much, right? And then the other interesting, I think, coming out of that, because Charlie Baker, when you look at the NCAA and what they're trying to do, they believe, right, that this deal is going to help schools regain some control. It's going to help limit some of this skyrocketing of pricing, right? When you look at paying college athletes through the third parties, not through a third party, whatever. And so the other thing that I think is interesting about this as well is when you look at the CSC, the College Sports Commission, the new oversight body responsible for enforcing some of those rules, the settlements, including rev sharing deals, NIL deals, and roster limits. And the other thing that I think is still really key about this is Don't forget about the NCAA limiting rosters. We're limiting rosters, cutting the rosters back, right? So that's going to be huge. Yeah, so scholarships are going to change, walk-ons are going to change, and to your point, when you look at some of that rev share and that compensation, it's going towards your blue chip athletes, your 4 stars, your 5 stars, who are getting the lion's share of the camera, the spotlight, the show, all of your skilled positions, things like that.
And just to fill in the roster piece a little fuller, just so for people that may not be aware, so currently the rules are, not currently anymore, because 7 days ago these rules took effect. But previously, I guess I need to say, the roster limit was 85 scholarship players, but you could carry up to like 130 with walk-ons or something like that. This is football only we're talking about. Okay, 134. Thank you, sir. And but now the deal is you can have 105 scholarship athletes, but that's it. There's no more walk-on practice squad like stuff going on that's allowable. That is the limit for the team. Now they all are entitled to scholarships, which is cool because you get more scholarships, but your overall player count drops significantly. So that's an issue, especially in Florida's case, because we have a lot of guys that we have carried in the past as walk-ons. So it is an interesting situation in terms of that. I'd be curious to see how they work that out, but we'll cross that bridge another time.
Exactly.
But yeah, great points on that. The other thing I was going to say in regards to the Deloitte piece of it in terms of the third-party evaluation, I have a question for you. So if you're a bag man, and for those who don't know who a bag man is, bag men are the gentlemen or ladies, could be either one, who go to players' houses and, as they say, drop a bag of cash to get a player to come to a certain school. This is a thing. This does happen. It is real. I'm sure it doesn't actually work exactly like that, but the long and the short of it is there's hey, yeah, you ever seen the movie Blue Chips? Exactly. That's what's going on, is we're dropping cash bags, right? So in theory, Deloitte does not allow for that as long as it's reported. Obviously that wouldn't be reported, but if it got wind to it, sales, and got back to Deloitte that this was happening, that would go as unreported NIL deals because they weren't for actually anything, right? And therefore, the school could theoretically be very much punished for that. So my question to you is, if you're a bag man, how nervous are you?
I'm shaking in my boots.
Really? I don't know that I am. I'm not sure it's going to work as quite as well as that, but here's hoping. I hope you're right. I hope you are, because I think that's definitely going to be something that we have to look out for. It's no longer okay. It's been okay for a while now, since 2021, as you mentioned. It's no longer okay based on this settlement. So very interesting change here, at least in theory, as mentioned. So with that,
it is in theory. And the other thing too that's going to be tough about that, because what are bag men typically? Right? You look at what their mission is, right? Whether it's a McDonald's bag, whether it's a Publix bag, whatever the case might be. How do you account duffel bag? How do you account for cash? Yeah. What is the accounting measure for cash? There is none. And so I firmly believe, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, so bear with me. Bag men are still going to do whatever they need to do to lock up a kid, to lock up a 4-star, to lock up a 5-star, to influence a kid to come to a school. Because at the end of the day, with this ruling, with the compliance, with all the oversight being provided, guess what? Collectives still exist. Right. So that other engine, that other machine over here, yeah, we've got 20.5 million, no problem. But if I want to really draw a kid here, I'm going to give them a deal with the local Chevy dealership, and then we're going to do this with this local restaurant, and we're going to do this. And oh, by the way, he might find another 50 grand in a McDonald's bag, double wrap, by the way, double wrap, right? So
But once again, if that were to happen and get found out about, because you can't report that, there's no way to report it. It's not an NIL deal. It's a bag drop. Right. So if that were, so again, the crux of the issue being, if that gets found out, then you have a problem. So
that's why I'm worried, right? Because I'm sure to drop that bag, I'm getting compensated to drop that bag in a certain way.
Sure.
And so
it's like the mafia. You go drop off the money.
Yeah, and I'm worried about what that's going to do for my role within the organization, because I'm the delivery guy, right? I'm the drop
Right.
off guy, right? And so that's tough there. Last two things important. Two other important considerations is Title IX. I don't know if you brought up Title IX yet, but the
No,
settlement
not yet. I have it in my notes for later, but go ahead.
Okay, all I'll say is this settlement does not address how schools will ensure Title IX compliance with rev sharing, right?
That's right.
So what I think that does, that opens up for future litigation.
Absolutely.
I'll just say it like that, right? And then the other thing is, this is extremely important for the Power Four, right? Power Four are bound by settlement. You may have said this earlier, but the other Division I schools have to opt in. Did you mention that? In or out? For
no, I didn't. I just said it was for Power Four. That's all I said.
Okay. So the other Division I schools have the option to opt in or opt out. There you go.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And again, they can still have collectives. They can still have NIL deals. They just don't have to participate in revenue sharing. So that's the piece of this that we're talking about. All right. So that covered a lot of my next dot, but I still want to turn it over to you. What things can we say we know about what this has now established? Things that we can say, things that we know for sure. What does that list look like? Because it's kind of still a little shorter than I want it to be. But what do you got there? What can we say we know currently?
What we know is this settles or ends three separate antitrust laws or lawsuits that were initially filed. Yep. Right. Yep. We talked about the first one coming in June of 2021 and then moving forward. So there's that. We have a set amount of back pay to take care of quote unquote back damages. Because again, all this is, and a lot of people might disagree with this point B, but the NCAA had years and opportunities to fix this, and they didn't.
That's right.
So just like any attorney would tell you, you can pay me now and it's going to cost you X, or you can wait and pay me later, but it's probably going to cost 4, 5, 6X, whatever the number.
That's right.
Okay. So that's the other thing too. It's created some compliance. It's created legal above the board, supposedly rev sharing, right? To get some of that back to the players. The other thing it's going to create is, now again, and that's why I think there's still going to be opportunities for various lawsuits coming on the pipeline, but this effectively establishes some foundation as to how players get compensated and the amount that they're to be compensated.
Yep, absolutely. So I'd agree with everything you said there. My basic summary here would just consist of saying that we know now that players can legally be paid through the university, right? So the key differentiation of this lawsuit, the biggest thing about it, even though there's potentially multiple big things about it, but to me the biggest thing is we now say, hey, University of Florida, you can pay your players up to $20.5 million this year, right? And then increasing over previous year or over subsequent years, excuse me. You can pay up to $20.5 million for college athletes to come play at your school. You can divide that money up however you see fit. As you mentioned, those are things that I'll get to again in a minute. But you can divide that $20.5 million up, and that is your cap. And you cannot spend more than that. However, you have $20.5 million that you can now allocate to the players on your various rosters as you see fit or as the market may dictate, which is a conversation we'll get to in a minute. But ultimately, that's the biggest thing. And regardless of the NIL deals and the collectives and all of that that's still going on, again, which theoretically gets evaluated differently but still exists, there is a set cap of money and it is equal by school. And those are the key things to me that we know that this sets up, puts in place, and establishes. And frankly, from a standpoint of being Florida and being a school that our athletic department generates a large amount of revenue through various different sources, a lot more than $20.5 million. Feel free to Google it. I'm not sure if you'll find it if you Google it, for the record, but I know it's more than that. But ultimately, $20.5 million is certainly something that we can handle without incident or issue. So that's the good news piece of this thing. So with that, I'm going to change it over to what do we not know? What things are still ambiguous, up in the air, whatever the case might be. First and foremost, how is money divided amongst athletes? This is where I'm bringing up what you talked about earlier. There is no Title IX stipulation in this ruling. In other words, the money can be allocated however the schools would choose to do so. The back pay, on the other hand, does have a stipulation, though it is also not guided by Title IX, which is interesting, and I think will help in some of that litigation should it take place. And I don't mean help in terms of one side or another winning. I just mean it helps give a guideline, right? Because the back pay monies are set up as such. 75% of the $2.8 billion goes to football players. Let that sink in. 75% of $2.8 billion. Again, paid out over 10 years, and there's a lot of players involved, so we're not talking about, a set amount of money, and I don't know how that 75 is broken up amongst players. I don't know any of that. I don't know that it's stipulated. But 75% goes to football. 15% goes to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to all other sports. That is your breakdown. That is what the ruling establishes. Again, only for the back pay, not moving forward. Universities can do what they like, and Florida is not telling us what they're doing. And we'll leave it at that. I don't think it's going to be crazy dissimilar from what you have heard in the back pay ruling. However, it may not be exactly that. So just so you know. Now, what's interesting about this is moving forward, because there is no stipulation, and this is the point everybody keeps bringing up, St. John's is the classic example here, right? Very good team last year. Rick Pitino's the coach on the basketball side. They don't have a football program. So they can put 85 or 90% or whatever they want towards their basketball of this $20.5 million. So their roster budget just went way up. Florida can't do that. Florida has to allocate a fair amount, if not, I'm sure, the majority of the money to football. We don't have that much left over for basketball. Does that create a competitive disadvantage? What happens there? Is there litigation? Again, things we don't know. But currently, this is how the ruling reads. So there are some concerns there. So those are basically my thoughts on what we don't know. What do you got there?
Yeah, great points, B. And that's the other thing too. I think Strickland's got to be careful.
Yep.
And the UAA, for the record, have to be careful. They've really got to play advanced chess here and not checkers when it comes to divvying this up.
3D chess, baby, 3D chess.
There you go. We just came off an amazing run by men's basketball. And for all intents and purposes, that momentum has to continue. Obviously, we paid some guys some good money, right? Denzel Aberdeen left to take more money for Kentucky. Good luck with that. Bringing in a player like Boogie Fland, some of the other players that we've been able to secure and return, which is phenomenal. So basketball, we're expecting great things out of. But to your point, if the majority of that's going towards football, because guess what? We're not a one-sport school or a two-sport school, right?
Right.
You look at the baseball program. I know baseball is only allocated for 5%, but Kevin O'Sullivan has made some significant moves this offseason to boost up that pitching rotation, which what we suffered from last year. If those of you remember, we started off SEC play 1-11. So pitching had to be bolstered. He's gone out and got some arms, some fresh arms.
The fact that dude made the College World Series, even the extended version, not the Omaha, but made the 64 team with a 1-11 start is absolutely wild. I mean, what an amazing thing to do. He's now, I believe, 17-0 in making them. I don't think he's ever missed one. Pretty wild. Right. He may have missed one. I could be. Don't quote me on that. I do not have that stat looked up. But it's damn close to 17-0 if it's not that.
That's the thing. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Sully might have missed one, but either way, it's a hell of a record.
Maybe one. Yeah, it's only one if it is more than zero.
Right. And when you look at that, and you look at this roster, you look at what's possible. We did that with pitching being depleted. It came back, and arguably one of our best players out for the majority of the season. So, anyways, how much more?
Welcome to the My Two Bits Gators Gators baseball podcast.
Yeah, right. So, how much more do you allocate towards baseball? Look at women's softball. Women's softball had the opportunity to go and compete for a national title again.
Yeah, they did make the final. They did make the final eight. I think maybe even the final four.
right? So what? And so go back to your point, B, about St. John's. This is not a one sport school, right? This is multiple. And when you look at what we do, especially in tennis and track and field and everything else that Florida has done, they have some interesting first world problems up there at the UAA. I'll just say it that way.
Well, so what I think is interesting about it, so it's a great point you make. It's a terrific point you make, actually, because we have a great track team, right? We have a great, Florida's good at everything, right? We're the friggin' everything school when it comes to athletics. We just really are. We do. We still have the most Capital One Cups of any school, right? We said it before, we'll say it again. We may win another one this year. Who knows? But regardless, where I'm trying to go with this is I wonder where the collectives might be able to get involved here. And they have to be careful because it has to be legit. But again, Florida Victorious now is supplemental. It's not primary. Well, in theory anyway, but it's certainly not, I don't know. Maybe it is still, I don't think it's still primary, but it might be for some sports, right? And that's the thing. So, like, can they negotiate legitimate deals? Because I do believe Florida will do this in a legitimate way. I do not think we'll have recruiting violations. We typically do not do that. Ever since the 80s, and we got burned, we have not gone back. We've been a very, very clean-nosed program ever since, right? So when you look at it, I think it's quite possible that we will do some things with NIL to get creative there in a way that's within the rules, but that helps out with some of these other sports that are not going to be able to get the bulk of the revenue sharing. It's just not going to be there.
Right. And that's the other thing too, to talk about, what we mentioned earlier about the bag man and how those deal. Remember, any deal above $600 is going to be audited. Has to be accounted for.
$600. So literally everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so the probably the biggest delta in this whole equation is how NIL deals outside the settlement are properly monitored and handled. Right.
Agreed. 100%. I agree with you. That is the big question right now.
Yes.
Again, we've kind of kicked it around. The biggest thing we don't know is how does Deloitte handle this process? What kind of investigation is involved into schools to make sure that they are reporting everything first and foremost, and then that the things that are being reported are being fully validated and vetted and checked for their legitimacy and everything else, right? That is going to be the biggest unknown that we don't have right now, and it's nothing we can do to find that out other than wait and see, right? That's our only choice. So, all right. With that, let's move into how this impacts recruiting. So this is really an important piece of this. We got some very interesting fodder last week that we're going to bring into this about some stuff that was going on online. So I'll let you lead this off. So how does this ruling impact recruiting again, based on what we currently know?
Well, so a couple of things. As we established, $20.5 million cap. So you've got that. As far as how it's going to be dispersed, that's the other thing. 75% going towards football for the University of Florida. That is more than likely established. So here's the other thing, too, is going to be, and if you want to go ahead and reference it, we can reference it. But
yeah, go ahead.
There was a conversation, right? I'll just say a social media post from Hal Lewis, right, regarding Trenton Henderson.
Well, fill in people on who Hal Lewis is because they may not know.
So Hal Lewis is a booster, and he's been a booster for a long time. And he pretty much sounded off here in a very public way and basically saying, we're not paying this amount to an unproven college player.
Say the amount. I don't care. Throw it out.
Who hasn't played a down, right?
Yeah. What was the amount? Throw it out. If you don't have it, it's $750K.
700, right? $750,000.
Yep.
Right. And this went on for a period of time. And so the interesting thing about that is the player really not worth the money because they haven't played a down in college football? Is it because the fact that this player, all of it is based off of this potential that the player has? And the other thing is this really what we're talking about? If we offered him, for the record, we don't know what we offered him, but let's say it was $500,000, 600,000.
We tried to find that number out, but we couldn't
find it, right? What does that mean? Because now are we limiting what we're offering a player because we have to stay within those guidelines and feel like that money has to be divvied up or quote unquote saved, or we can't stretch it as much as we did before?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, right? So these are the questions that we have, but the impact to recruiting. So first of all, let me ask: does that sum up your points on that? I just want to make sure I'm not cutting you off.
It sums up the initial point, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll respond here. So this Trenton Henderson thing, he was crystal ball to us. For those that don't know, he was projected to come to the University of Florida. Everybody thought he was coming here, and then all of a sudden, less than a week before his commitment date, he gets crystal ball to LSU instead. And then Hal Lewis gets on Twitter the weekend before he announces his commitment and says, he ain't coming here. We'll find somebody else. We ain't paying, as you mentioned, $750K to a high school kid who hasn't played a down in college football. Implying, of course, that LSU is. So, having said that, what I think is interesting about this is that there is now going to have to be, and there already is, but it's going to have to be even more expensive, an evaluation process for these athletes, right? And we're going to have to say, okay, what does this kid's talent, ranking, potential, development, ability, right? Whatever these different factors are that are going to go into this. And Jacob LaFrance is going to be heavily involved with this because he's the kind of talent acquisition specialist form of the player personnel decisions, at least to a degree. Napier's involved as well, of course, but Jacob LaFrance is kind of heading that up and kind of figuring out, okay, what should we pay this guy? And we're going to come up with a number for that based on the revenue sharing model. However, the important thing to think about is the player is worth not what we deem them to be worth, but whatever the market is willing to pay, right? That's what the player is worth, is what the market is willing to pay. Just like anything you would go and buy. What is the market willing to pay for your specialty good, right? Because this isn't a consumer good. This is a specialty product, right? So this is a sports car, right? What is the market bearing out the price to be? Because that's what's going to dictate what it's worth. Now, having said that, I don't know that the highest bidder is always what the player is worth, right? So I'm not saying that we have to always match an offer if we really want a guy or anything like that. But the thing we have to be is competitive. So you mentioned 500, 600,000 potentially for him, just as a not as a any kind of approximation, just as a point for conversation.
Yes.
If we were at 500 or 600,000, I'm good with it because I think we're competitive. I think we're there. I think there's other things that the program can be sold on. And if the kid's all about money, then best of luck to you, and we'll move on about our day, right? Because we have other things to offer here besides just the cash. We have Gatormade, right? We have personal, professional, and career development to offer you that a lot of other schools, frankly, don't have in the same way that we do. That is one of the things Billy has gone above and beyond on and knocked it out of the park, right? So, as long as we're competitive, if a kid doesn't pick us, I got no qualms. Probably wasn't the right fit. And that's fine. Doesn't make him a bad kid. Doesn't mean anything. It's all good. However, if in our evaluation process we are not competitive to what some schools are going to offer to a player, and I hope that that doesn't happen, but again, we don't have direct knowledge of what we were paying here. I wish we did, and we find out, we will update you because we are looking actively. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is if we're not competitive, then all that other stuff, it matters, but I don't know if it matters enough. And what I mean by that is if you're offering this guy 250, 300, even 350, below half of what he's potentially getting paid for a season with another school, man, I don't know. That's a lot of money to turn down. That's a lot of money to turn down. And I think that's where we start to get into a dangerous situation here. So while I appreciate Hal Lewis's comments, and I appreciate what he's trying to say, as long as we were in the ballpark, I totally agree. But if we weren't, and again, we don't know, and if we find out, we'll let you know. But if we weren't, it's a slippery slope, especially with what we're going to be going into here with the rev share. So I'll turn it back over to you because you said you had other points.
Well, see, and that's the other thing too. We want to be competitive, right? But what does competitive mean? That's extremely subjective in this era, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, are we undercutting the ability to sign a top quality prospect to our program? Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples. Everyone thought the Chiefs were crazy when they signed Patrick Mahomes to a $450 million deal. Okay, unprecedented in the football world, right? You had that same year, just the year before, Manny Machado signing a 10-year, $300 million contract for the Padres. And again, that's a football reference, that's a baseball reference. And the most recent one, you've got Juan Soto and what he just did with the Mets, 15 years, $765 million. And I don't know the analyst, so I'm not going to quote the analyst, but I remember hearing an analyst say on ESPN, we're probably not too far away from an athlete signing a $1 billion deal, which would be the first of its kind in sports, right?
Yeah.
And so, and these are quote unquote professional athletes. We're going back now. We're taking a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old kid, and all they are a commodity.
That's right.
They're oil, they're orange juice, they're coffee, they're right. And we are trying to establish what is fair market value. What is this person actually worth? Okay, this is the position. They're a defensive lineman. They're an edge player. They're an offensive lineman. This is the height. This is the weight. This is their agility. This is their speed. This is their 40 time, right? All those things. But like, to your point, all these things, the market's going to establish a price.
Yep.
Let's say, going back to Trent Henderson, the price really was $700,000, $750,000. To your point, if we're offering $550,000, $600,000, are we okay with that?
I mean, I think so for me, but that's my opinion. And other people's opinion may vary, and it's a valid point. If we're not matching the market. Now, again, is that the market though, or is it one player in the market? And that's what the point I was trying to make, right? You don't, if you're going to the highest bidder, one, you're more money motivated than a lot of the players that we have necessarily on this roster. And it's not to say that we don't have money. We do as a university, obviously, but ultimately there are other things that we are prioritizing as well. It's not solely about the money, is I guess what I'm trying to say here. Sure. And ultimately, when you look at that, I think that's okay. I don't think that's a bad thing if you're selling something besides just price, if you will, right? Selling on price alone is usually not a recipe for success when you look at business, right? So if you look at that, to me, I'm okay with it. Now, but I could be wrong. I don't know how this is going to shake out and work, and especially with all these changes, I don't know. I could be wrong. To me, that's why I made the point of I think it's important to be competitive, but it doesn't mean we have to match the price.
And that's a great point, because guess what? We have other things here at the University of Florida.
Exactly.
And I don't want to say Trump price, but the culture, the opportunities within the NIL, within Florida Victorious, the exposure, the opportunity to play in the SEC, the opportunity to build something phenomenal, which is what this bandwagon that we've been on over the past 3 seasons. I know we beat that horse to death. So at the end of the day, the player's worth what the market's willing to play. That's one thing. But the other thing is, does the pitch work if another school offers more money and we miss out on that top talent? Because we talked about this before, B. Look at all the number 1 picks that have been busts. Look at all the top 10 picks, the first round draft picks that have been busts. This is all just potential energy. This is all potential.
That's right. And I think that was as much of Hal Lewis's point as anything else, right? Yeah. Is that we're not going to pay top dollar for a player that we don't know if they might bust. And I get it. I get it.
It's a people might not like it and say, hey, we're Florida, we have the money, we have the abilities, let's go get them. But that's the other thing too, to your point, we just want to make sure we are closing the deficiency gap with Georgia, with Bama, with
That's right.
Texas, to the point where that recruiting class, we're hovering around 10, right? That recruiting class needs to hover around 5.
Yeah,
And
it
so
does.
is
It
that
does.
being compromised, right?
Yep, and that's the question, right? And that's what we're going to have to see as we move forward. Because
Yeah.
assuming that we have more successful seasons, which is certainly an assumption under Billy, but if we do have more successful seasons, because that should have been the last barrier. That should
Yep.
have been the last barrier because again, we have the money, we have the ability, we have the culture certainly, right? We have all the things in place. The thing that could potentially dissuade kids from coming here is, well, I think I might want to contend for the college football playoff, and I'm not sure if Florida's going to do it. If we can overcome that kind of last objection, in my mind anyway, then
Yes.
I think that's where you see that class start to really excel. It's where you could see this class start to really excel this season. It's possible, right? That possibility exists. And if we see that, then I have no qualms with whatever we're doing from an evaluation standpoint. Like you said, if we get up to kind of hovering closer to that 5 number, even if it's 7,
Yes.
to me, 7's kind of the cut. If you're 7 or above, you're still going to have 4 SEC schools above you, which is stupid, but it's real. And maybe 3. It's possible 3 to 4 above you for sure. But that's okay because again, the gap in talent isn't so wide as you mentioned, and that's so important as we move forward. So it's going to be something we have to see and how we work out. And speaking of talent and how that pans out, assuming that you've covered your points on how this affects recruiting, I'm going to move on to our recruiting update if that works for you.
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to take this in chronological order. So we're going to go from the most recent to the oldest recruit or oldest member of this class, committed member of this class. And we're going to walk you through just very high level. So this is not going to be like what we do for our National Signing Day or our early National Signing Day pod, where we really break down the recruit and what they're capable of. This is just high level. Who do we have recruited? We wanted to give you kind of a mid-year update on how things are tracking, especially with how hot Florida has been on the recruiting trail in the last 45 days. So having said that, number 1, as of yesterday, Mr. Malik Morris, linebacker out of Lakeland High School. The old Lakeland pipeline coming back. For those that may not remember, the Pouncey twins are from Lakeland. Of course, so is one Cormani McLean. Obviously, he didn't come here originally, but he is here now. So interesting there. We're working to rebuild all of that Lakeland pipeline. Those Ognaughts, is that what their mascot is, if I remember correctly? Something like that. I could be misquoting. Apologies to any Lakeland fans if I'm messing that up, but I think that's right. And ultimately, they are a very, very good school in high school football ranks, and he is a 4-star. Malik Morris is. He is ranked 209th overall, and again, he committed yesterday. So that is number 1 on the list. That's all we're giving you. We're not going anything else. It's just position, rank, star rating, and location. That's all. And commitment date, of course. The next one, personal favorite of mine, this one always warms my heartstrings when we get a Brevard County kid on the team. We have a few, but CJ Hester, cornerback out of Cocoa High School. And very, very local to where I am, in case that was missed somewhere. But he committed on 7-3. He is a 4-star as well, ranked 269th overall. So that's 2 top 300 players if you're scoring at home, and there's going to be more to come. Next on the list is Kendall Gervil, interior defensive lineman, committed on 7-2. He is out of Fort Myers High School, and of course, Fort Myers, Florida. 4-star, ranked 134 overall in the current class. Again, all these rankings coming from On 3. Desmond Green is the next one up. Interior offensive lineman, so guard / center, right? I'm not sure what he's going to play yet. Committed on 6/26. He is a 3-star, ranked 458th overall from Timberland High School in South Carolina. Timberland, where you at, Tim? Let me get a beat.
There you go.
Next up is CJ Brana. He is a cornerback as well, committed on 6/18, currently the highest ranked member of our class. He is a 4-star, 106th overall. This kid pops on film big time. Very excited for him to be coming here. I have him listed as the corner, but it is possible he also plays safety. He played a little of both in high school, so it'll be very interesting to see where we put him. He is out of Windermere High School in, of course, Winter Garden. Next up is Tyler Chukwum. That is the pronunciation. Yes, indeed. Offensive tackle out of South Paulding High in Georgia, Douglasville, I believe. He is a 3-star ranked 486th overall. But a really solid ad. I think a guy that may move up a little more, but I'm not supposed to go into more detail, so I won't. Javari Lucas, another potential mover on this list, offensive tackle, committed on 6/16 as well. If I didn't say that about Tyler, that was the same date. He is also a 3-star. He is only ranked 1171st, so he is the lowest recruit on this list currently. But again, I think some potential to move. But he is out of Glade Central High School in good old Belle Glade, powerhouse Division I producing school. That Belle Glade. We used to play them at my high school and get beat badly. So Belle Glade, very, very good producing Division I athletes, as mentioned. And last but not least, for my segment of our 16 recruits, my last one here is Jaraylen McCoy, the high-profile edge out of Mississippi. I believe rated the best player in Mississippi potentially, or one of the best. I didn't look that up before, so I could be wrong. But he committed on 6/14. He is a 4-star, ranked 163 overall, again from Tupelo High in Mississippi. So that is your first 8 of the 16. Randy will bring you the second 8. Go ahead, sir.
Nice. I like it, B. Great way to round it out. It's kind of hard not to. You want to go into a little bit more detail, but it's like, hey, these are just commits. Just commits.
Yep, they're just commits. We might lose them, so we're not going to count our chickens, and we're not going to spend a ton of time researching and looking all that stuff up for you yet. We will, but not yet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, coming in, recruited, right, committed, 6'14", wide receiver out of Booker T. Washington, Tuskegee, Alabama. Marquez Daniel, a 4-star wide receiver.
Another one that could potentially move up. Love this kid.
Absolutely, 162 nationally, and I think he's got to move up because from the film, the footage I saw, he's just got to move up. Let's say that.
Yeah.
All right. Committed on 6/13, Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes, which is Fairburn, Georgia, a 4-star running back, number 227 in the class. Committed on 6/9, Kekua Rhino Amua out of Kakuku, Hawaii. Oh my God.
All right. Hey, you get the pronunciation challenge for the day, buddy. Good job. Good job.
Right, Kakuku. Okay, yeah. 3-star tight end. Listen, his nickname is Rhino. Are you serious? He is number 591 nationally. I don't care. The kid's nickname is Rhino. I'll take it. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Anybody who's nicknamed Rhino, you can come on down.
Bingo. So I think that's a 3-star that could potentially move up as well. Because when you look at the things that he's able to do, big guy, physical. We need a physical tight end for, blocking schemes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
All right, on 6/8, we have Chancellor Campbell out of Lakewood, which is St. Pete, Florida, a 3-star offensive tackle, ranked number 444 in this class. Also on 6/8, we have Justin Williams, local boy here, Buchholz High School out of Gainesville proper, 4-star. Yeah, he spent some time at wide receiver, spent some time in the slot, spent some time at running back. His position, I love this on 3, ATH.
Yeah. Athlete, baby. Yep. And he also did some pretty good kick returning, if memory serves.
Bing and kick return. So athlete, to quote South Park. Overall, number 192 nationally. So looking forward to see what he can do. A lot of his footage just shows him getting the ball and running a very long way untouched. So there's that.
I love that. Getting the ball, run long.
Run, yeah. Hey, he did well following his blockers, but he had a lot of long runs last year, just saying. Next up, on 6/3, we have Caden Hall out of Milton High School, Milton, Florida, a 3-star safety corner, but more so safety, number 210 in the class. Then committed on 6/1, Genevieve Carr out of IMG Academy, Bradenton, Florida, a 3-star interior offensive lineman, number 485 nationally. And the last/first commitment in this class, Will Griffin out of Jesuit in Tampa, Florida, 4-star, number 258 nationally, but listen to the commitment date, 6/1, dating back to 2024.
That's right. Been committed for over a year. Unwavering recruitment shut down.
Unwavering. Does that remind you somebody, B?
It does.
A current quarterback? Just saying.
Go DJ. That's my DJ. I'm gonna be singing that all year. I hope. Anyway, I hope I'm singing it all year. I hope so. Let's keep him healthy. But yes, good deal. All right, so that rounds out your 16 members of the current class, just very high level, as mentioned. Only other thing we want to talk about is where we are currently. So class is currently ranked 13th on On3 nationally. But interesting points to make here. First, it has a smaller class side compared to a lot of the other top 20 classes currently. There are only 2, I think, with less, maybe 3 that have less commitments than us. Everybody else has more, and in some cases, significantly more. Yeah. So that is interesting because it definitely means we have the potential to move up. Our average player ranking is higher than a lot of those classes. Otherwise, we would not be there. So Billy is doing a great job, and not just Billy, but Billy and crew are doing a great job of recruiting high-end talent, which they have consistently done. They have done a very good job of that, especially despite some of the challenges. Recruiting has not been the problem, right? It has not been the issue. Overall, even though it may not have quite gotten to levels we want it to be, it has definitely been better, certainly better than the previous coach who was in Florida. So moving along. Other things to note about the class that are important in my mind. 12 of 16 that are currently committed from the beginning of June until now. 12 in the last 37 days. 38 days, excuse me. Well, no, it is 37 because we didn't have a commit today. So in the last 37 days, we have 12 of our 16 commits. That's remarkable. That's a heck of a run. The boys are cooking. They really are. All this, if you're hearing anything, if you're seeing anything about all these recruits and how they're staying hot and how they're blazing and everything else, they really are. That's a lot of recruits to get in that short period of time. Granted, this is the season for it to a degree, but nonetheless, not only are we getting recruits, we're getting good high-end recruits because 10 of the 16 are currently top 300. Wow, that's pretty good. And 14 of the 16 are top 500. Pretty impressive stuff. So just some interesting notes that are going on with the class. Again, some things that we're really seeing start to pop. I did see one other thing I wanted to point out yesterday on a different site. I don't remember what it was. I apologize. But the percent of Florida recruits, as you may notice, is up substantially from previous classes. Not to say that we weren't still getting some Florida recruits before, but we were definitely not getting maybe the percentage that you think we should, considering where we were as a program and where we were in recruiting and everything else. We were getting a lot of out-of-state, and there's nothing wrong with out-of-state, but you should recruit your backyard the best, right? So that's the interesting thing, and we really, I don't want to say hadn't been doing that, but it hadn't been the same percentage that I would expect to see, and so far this year's class is way up in comparison to previous ones. So
yes,
as we know, Florida produces a lot of talent, so that is a good thing. So I'll turn it over for you. Any other thoughts on the class as a whole?
Yeah, great points as far as of the 16, 12 of those. Really, I want to say crunch time, but talk about a couple of weeks there that Billy Napier was just at that smoker cooking, absolutely cooking. Jacob LaFrance, all those guys in the front office, Nick Polk, Ben Els, whatever they were doing it so well.
That sunglass emoji he posts on Twitter when he gets one, he needs to put some fire underneath it or something, man.
Right?
Good Lord, they're hot.
Right? So that's phenomenal. The top 300, the top 500, we know that. To your point, B, I was going to point this out. Right now, with this current class, 69% in-state. 69%. Average distance, 199 miles. 199 miles compared to last year's class being down at 62% at about 297 miles. Look at the difference.
Yep. It's early still. There's more to come, but nonetheless, sure. That's significant.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? When you look at, I get it, California, Texas, Florida, a lot of that raw talent. But to your point, it's your backyard. You should be able to go walking in your backyard and be a little bit selective. Oh, by the way, this just broke. Jake Kruel, Kruel, had the Gators in his final 5 with Colorado, Ohio State, Texas, and Oklahoma. Unfortunately, we just found out a few minutes ago his final 3 is Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Texas. So the edge, Jake Kruel is out.
That's actually shocking because he was a kid who really wanted to be a Gator. So I am floored by that. There's got to be an NIL involved there.
It seemed like, yeah. It
seemed like he was quoted as saying it's his dream school. He grew up wanting to play here, all these kind of things. So NIL's got to be a huge factor for Kruel. That's huge. Disappointing.
100%.
It's okay. We'll just flip him later.
It's possible.
Yes, it is. And that's why we didn't go into more detail, right? Because all of these guys, we just had Jameer Perez, as we know, flip over to Ohio State, which is fine. Things happen. Wish him the best. But, this is part of it, right? This is just part of the way things work now with NIL, with just recruiting in general to an extent. But it's more prevalent now with all the money that's in play, right? So important notes to think about, and why we did not go into more detail with these guys as of yet. So with that, I think we have reached our close here. Really enjoyed going through this. I know that maybe the material for this one wasn't as entertaining as some might be, but I think it's really important, right? We value factual evidence on this pod very highly, right? So I think it's really important to know the facts when it comes to NIL, and I think that's a key point that we want to make sure that we keep the eye on, keep the pulse on as we move forward, because again, it impacts a lot of things, right? We're talking about it impacting recruiting, talking about it impacting transfer, talking about it impacting current players to keep them from going into the transfer portal, right? There's a lot of things that go into this. It's very ingrained and involved now with college football, especially, though other college sports as well, of course. And so we just want to make sure we keep a pulse on that. So hopefully we have given you some content that you find beneficial. We didn't bore you to tears too much. We tried to keep it light. So hopefully we've accomplished that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you to give you any closing thoughts you might have there, Randy.
Yeah, but super insightful, because the other thing is we talked about Pandora's box being opened up in June of 2021 with NIL. And what did that actually mean, right? So it essentially created a way for the Wild Wild West expansion. So it is what it is. So now we have a couple of metrics tied. We have a couple of accountability measures, literally and figuratively. There's some benchmarks. There's some things tied, and that's great. But still, we still have deltas. We still have a Wild Wild West that could potentially happen in a way when it comes to how the collectives operate, when it comes to how those other NIL deals operate outside of the $20.5 million and how it is divvied up. And so this is going to be super crucial moving forward. And then the other thing too, outside of the Power Four, these other schools having the ability to opt in or out, that's going to create another massive delta when you look at how that power struggle is going to exist moving forward. And are we going to be able to see a lot of different schools come to the board and compete? And what does that do for a lot of the schools, especially what we saw in the SEC last year? People can argue, well, the SEC isn't as strong. It's like, well, we no longer have the SEC East and the SEC West, but definitely you can tell some of that power has shifted when you look at the distribution of funds as well as talent and how to go after some of those players. To your point, talking about the fair market value and what schools are willing to pay. So super interesting as this unfolds, but I fear it's another side of Pandora's box. But again, TBD.
Yep. I think there's definitely some pieces of it that could be, but we're just going to have to wait and watch. That's all we can do. So with that, we will wrap things up here. Our next pod will come to you in 2 weeks, as has been our off-season cadence for the most part anyway, for the entire offseason. And it is going to be the schedule and detailed look at each matchup for this coming season. It's getting to be that time. We're going to have to start delving in. This is a pod that Randy and I have to do a ton of research for, but that is okay. We're going to look at each team, what's different about them this year versus last year, if assuming we played them last year, which the SEC schedule, we played all of them the same, right? So we'll have that as a reference point and a basis, but we will look into who's different, who's here now, who left, right, of significance, who they gained through the portal, or potentially through recruiting, right, with impact freshmen that might be coming in. We'll look at all of those things, and we will give you our take on how Florida could fare in the matchup, again, as a preseason look, right? So we did this last year, gave the percentages of what we thought. We will do that again. Little wrinkle this year, I'm going to bring in NCAA 26 and sim those games out, and we'll see what NCAA 26 thinks is the percent. So we'll throw that in as well, just as a side note. So it should be interesting to see, interesting to do. It is a lot of work, but we feel it's very important to really break those matchups down. So that's something we'll bring to you in 2 weeks from now. So looking forward to doing that with you. So with that, wraps up what I have. I'll turn it over to you to sign us off there.
Definitely great pod, great topic. Look forward to it, Gator Nation. Hope you all enjoyed it. So wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.